Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining me. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I am joining from sunny South Florida. I'm in the Fort Lauderdale area, so feel free to let me know where you are joining from. I hope it's not too cold where you are already, but either way, I've got you covered. We are making a super, super cozy, ready for fall meal. I'm making one of my all-time favorite dishes to show off when I'm cooking for anybody that's not just myself. This is like my favorite thing to show off that I know how to cook. And it's pretty easy. You just got to get the technique down and then you're good to go. We are making a scallop and mushroom risotto. Yes. Now I know that risotto can get a sort of mixed rep because of it kind of having a reputation of being a little tricky to make, but it's not. Just stick with me. We're going to be good to go. It sounds like we've got California in the house. We've got Washington, D.C. in the house. Hello, New York City. I was just in New York City a couple weeks ago. So you're on the East Coast with me, so that means it's dinner time. I'm really excited to be eating this for dinner after. Let me know, continue to let me know where you're joining from. And if you have any questions at all about this recipe, let me know in the chat. I have someone letting me know what your questions are, so I will be sure to answer them. And hello to Tampa, fellow Floridian, Chicago. I was born there. Hello, hello. I could be talking to you guys all day about where you're from. We've got Jersey in the house. I'll keep checking back on where you guys are joining from and any questions you have. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you the little overview of what we're doing here. So making risotto can sound a little bit tricky, but trust me, it's not. It's not too many ingredients. We've just got a handful here. And I'm going to start cutting up an onion while I talk to you a little bit about this recipe. We want a finely diced onion, which we have here. Risotto is maybe confusing to some people, but basically what it is it's a cooking method. It means, I mean, obviously there's rice pilaf, there's any, rice and beans. You can have rice a million different ways, but there's only a few types of rice that actually work with making risotto. And one of them is arborio rice, which I have here. And what the risotto method is cooking our grain, our rice, in fat, and then slowly coaxing out the starches with liquid. So we're going to get into all of that. That's just a brief overview into what's going to be happening here today while I kind of mess up this onion a little bit, but it's all good. And what we are going to be using to really kick up the flavor up a few notches is Holland House white cooking wine. If you can see this bad boy right here, that's going to be one of our chief MVPs. We'll call it a chief flavor officer. Let's call it that. A CVP, CFP. What's good about Holland House Cooking Wine is that it is really consistent. I know myself personally, when I see white wine for cooking, I'm kind of like, okay, what do I, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, like what exactly am I going for here? And honestly, using Holland House white cooking wine kind of takes out that guesswork for me. And I know that it's going to be very consistent and it's going to be delicious and the flavors are going to be on point and it's going to just get the job done. So we're going to get to that part of this recipe in a little bit, but Holland House Cooking Wine can definitely amp up many, many dishes, but especially this risotto here. So we've got one chopped onion and I have a large pan heating over medium high. Now, one thing about this recipe is you can't really, there's no real way to skip any steps or speed this up too much because you really don't want anything to burn because everything's going to slow cook together over the entire course of this live. You're going to see exactly the slow but sure steps that we're going to take to make sure we get this where we want it to be. So we've got our olive oil, which is our fat, which is going to be cooking our onions here, but then also what we're going to use to start cooking the rice. You'll see. Just bear with me. So anyway, we're pouring our onions into our heated pan and we're going for medium high for now. We'll probably change it around a little bit as we go. But we are cooking down some white onion and we want that to get soft What's good about, risotto is the base ingredients really lend themselves to a lot of different flavors. So obviously it's fall. People really like, squash is in season right now, pumpkin, butternut squash, all of those fun things. And it's a super cozy dish. So it definitely works to customize this to whatever you're kind of in the mood for. So that's personally what I like about it. Those are going. Let's get them a little hotter. Work with me. And we're going to salt them a bit. And we want these onions to become nice and soft. And we have plenty of time for them to get there. But before we move on to the next step, like I said, you can't really skip too much ahead of where you're at. And another thing I want to mention is here you'll notice this pot I have on the stove. This has about 3 cups of chicken broth and 3 cups of water mixed together, and that is heated up but not boiling. And so that stock mixture is what we're going to use to cook really all of this. And I have a ladle in there that we're going to add 1 ladleful at a time, you can see it, of liquid to our risotto as this process carries on. So that hopefully is the overview that will help get your head wrapped around exactly what we're doing here today. Do we caramelize the onions? The answer is no. So we're not caramelizing them. We honestly don't want them to take on any color. We just want them to get soft. So right now I have the temperature on high just because I needed this pan to heat up a little bit, but we're going to keep it on medium to medium high the whole time because we don't want anything to get too brown. Everything, it's a very pale dish. Cozy for fall, it's fine. But yeah, this is all going to be pretty pale. We don't want the onions to get any level of charred. And, oh, we got a rogue, we got a runner. While we are cooking the onions, that's pretty much all we're doing for now. If you have any other questions, definitely let me know. And we definitely have a lot of time for the onions to get nice and soft. Okay, we've got a good question. Can you use shallots instead? Yes, I personally love shallots. Honestly, I think I would do both. If I was feeling fancy, I'd probably do both. I think shallots lend great flavor. Really any allium like that. We're going to put garlic in this in a little bit. So garlic, obviously, and shallots would be great in here. Go crazy. This is just a flavoring element, and these onions are going to get nice and soft and just incorporated into everything that we've got going on. So these are starting to get nice and translucent for us. So what we want to do now, how is cooking wine different than other wine? That is a very good question, Carly. So cooking wine is kind of like the name says for cooking. Other wine is for drinking. So Holland House Cooking Wines, you can buy at the store. They're affordable, great quality product, and just not recommended for drinking. And it's going to give you that consistent, robust flavor throughout your dish that, certain wines may be a little sweeter or different for different parts of your palate notes. So cooking wine for cooking. Other wine, drink it. I would not recommend drinking this, but definitely cook with it. I hope that answers your question. And yeah, I mean, it's just easy and solid. I mean, you just really come out with a great product when you're using a quality cooking wine like this from Holland House, and it's going to give us a lot of good flavor. How about fish or veggie stock instead of chicken? That's from Pat. That's a really good question as well, because really the only reason I'm using chicken stock is for flavor. So you could definitely use that instead. You could use beef stock. That would give this a really good flavor. We just want something that's more flavorful than water because that's what's going to be really bringing out everything of this dish. So if we were just using water, it'd be a little, I don't know, just not as exciting. So any stock or broth would work well in this situation. So now that our onions are softening up, we're going to add in our rice. So this is the first part of our risotto cooking method, which is toasting the rice in fat. So we've got oil in the pan and we're going to toast the rice in there. And I have a cup of arborio rice that is going in. So here we go. All right. I tried to do that slow and seductively for you. And we are letting that rock and roll. We want the outer edges of the arborio rice to start to become a little opaque. And as you see now, the rice is obviously hard as rocks, and the pan is, you know, it doesn't look like there's a lot in there, but there's no cream in this dish. There's no milk, but you will see by the end of it, because of all the creamy starches in the rice, it's going to become a creamy dish by the end, which is very, very cool, and a cool, like, scientific foodie thing when you think about broth and rice becoming creamy together. They're a lovely little tag team, and we love that for them. They're a dynamic duo. Sorry, I keep spilling onions out of the pan. I think I bit off more than I could chew with this pan. Definitely make sure you have a pan that's big enough. We'll be fine in the end, but just disregard the mess. We'll be good. The cleanup crew will have to deal with that. The cleanup crew as in me and my parents. So we've got those toasted. Now, I mentioned garlic earlier for flavor. We're definitely going to add some garlic into the mix. I've got about 4 cloves diced up in here. Add that in there. We add this, I like to add the garlic a little bit later in the process because it can burn easily, and garlic cooks a lot faster because A, it's cut smaller, and B, it just does cook faster than onions. So I like to add it a little later in the process. So that's going in. Let the garlic become nice and aromatic. And we had a question about what wine would pair well with this dish. I think that white or red would go well. There's going to be scallops in the end, and I'm personally very pro, like, stick with white with fish and red with, you know, your red meats and more robust meats. But because there's going to be like mushrooms in here and Parmesan, this is a very, you know, Italian style dish. I think a nice light, maybe chilled red would go really nice with this. Like a Pinot Noir, I think would be, you know, no complaints from me. But again, if you want to keep it more classic and stick with white, I'm a big champagne and Prosecco gal myself. You know, I don't think it'd be pretty hard to go wrong, honestly, with a nice full Italian meal like this, you know, wine sense. Okay, so we've got the garlic in there that's nice and fragrant. Now comes the hardest part of this recipe, which is being patient. Can we be patient today? I'm feeling relatively patient. I don't know where y'all's heads are at, but we have everything in here that's toasted in the fat, which is the olive oil that we put in there earlier. And now we start with ladling in, let's say this ladle is about half a cup of liquid. That's all we're going to do at a time. So in goes our first ladleful of liquid. And we're not going to do anything. We're not going to add in anything else until all that liquid is absorbed. So this is how risotto becomes risotto, just with this slow liquid cooking process in the rice. You can see, I don't know if you can see, I'll try to give a look over here, but it might be a little hard to see, but the outside of each grain of arborio rice is a little opaque. And by the end of this, it will be fully cooked and soft. So keep an eye on your heat. It's okay to have like a small boil of the liquid is fine. We just really want to make sure that nothing burns. That's our main concern with the heat. So if it gets to be that kind of like rapid boil and you see things starting to brown, crank it back down, because we do not want burnt onions, because that's going to make our whole dish taste bad. And we don't want that. We certainly don't. And any other questions, feel free to send them along as I sit here and stir liquid into risotto. We are going to be cooking scallops in a little bit, but I want to make sure that we don't jump too far ahead of our skis. I don't know if that was the right idiom. It felt right. Will I use all the liquid? That's a good question as well. I doubt it. each batch is a little different that I've made of risotto. I don't think I've ever used the entire liquid, but it's always better to have more than less, because when you're in a pinch and you're down to, you know, your risotto is almost done and your liquid's absorbing quickly, but you're out, it's going to throw off the rhythm to have to then reheat up a stock pot full of stock and water. So I would say definitely more is better in this case, just, you know, to keep you on the safe side of where you're at from liquid. Okay, so we're looking pretty absorbed here, and I'm excited. I'm already like, I'm hungry. I'm on the East Coast, so it's, what time is it now? It's 8:15. I don't know where you all are, but it is certainly dinner time over here. So this is a very nice Tuesday night meal here in the Santos house. I don't even know if I mentioned this earlier, but my name is Alexa, Alexa Santos. I go by Alexa What's for Dinner on social media. Yeah, and I'm excited to be cooking here with Tastemade and Holland House. So we're going in with another ladleful of liquid. Now, the amount of time that this part takes really varies, and it's sort of hard to tell until you start tasting it. Obviously, we're not there yet. It's only been a few minutes. I would say at about the 15-minute mark, it's time to start tasting, see where your head and your palate are at. I added a little bit of salt to the onions earlier, but we're definitely going to have to check about midway through this and check for seasoning. Looks delicious. Could you make this recipe in an Instant Pot? I have never done that. I gotta deflect that question because I have no clue. I assume there's a way. If there's a will, there's a way. I have never done it, but I'm sure there's an Instant Pot blogger out there that knows how to do it, not me. And then someone wants to know, how do you know when to add more liquid? That is when the liquid that is in here is completely absorbed. So you'll see right now, if you check on this camera, I can kind of, ooh, it's a little hot, but I can tilt it a bit so you can see. Got a lot going on the stove. Okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to screw myself up. It's too hot, but there's liquid in there, you can clearly see, and once that's gone, we'll add more. So I'll give you a heads up before I do it next time, and so you can sort of get a sense. Yeah, we've got a couple of rogue onions around our stove here. It's okay. Cleanup crew can handle it. And you can see already our rice is sort of becoming lighter, fuller. They're becoming full and happy liquid and rice. Two lovers under the sun. I don't know. I'm just saying weird stuff. Sorry, guys. But the liquid is starting to absorb slowly but surely. Have I tried risotto in Italy? No, I wish. I've only been to Italy once when I was studying abroad, and I don't think I ate risotto there. I bet it is absolutely fantastic. Although you can make it at home. It's not hard. I think once we get the technique down, once you practice this dish, you know, once or twice and kind of just acknowledge the fact that it's going to be a bit of a labor of love, then you'll be in good shape. And you see the liquid is boiling here and starting to become less liquidy. So once it seems like it's pretty much gone, we will add more. Yeah, you can see here at the bottom, there's not much liquid left. And it's kind of crazy to watch it happen, to watch it. Like I said, it's sort of a scientific vibe. You can just watch the cooking science happen before your eyes of liquid and rice happening together in holy matrimony. And yeah, just letting it rock and roll. It doesn't have to be completely bone dry, you know, don't stress over it. Like right now, you can see it's starting to be pretty dry, but it's not absolutely bone dry. I think we'll be okay to add some liquid in soon. Basically, the gist of it is that you want to go slowly and let the liquid and starches do their thing. So it's a lot of stirring. It's a fun recipe to drink some wine with, listen to music. That's my favorite way to make this. Any advice for someone making risotto for the first time? That's from Royce. Thanks for your question, Royce. My advice would be just to not stress. I think, you know, slower is better. Definitely take your time. Give yourself ample time. I'm going to pause that answer real quick just so I can show you guys that this is quite dry now. So you'll see we move it and there's no liquid in there. So we're going to add in some more. Here we go. Anyway, Royce, just to get back to you. The best advice I could give is give yourself plenty of time and don't stress, because if you're kind of under a time crunch, you might be tempted to turn your heat up too high and then you might burn things. But kind of following this method of going slow, letting it happen easily, and not being afraid of how much time it can take is my best recommendation. Obviously, chefs in kitchens that are under fire, like literally like, oh my God, we got to get this going. I'm sure chefs in restaurant kitchens have found a way to do this a lot faster. As a home cook, I personally find it a lot easier to not give myself that stress, make sure I have plenty of time, and just let the ingredients do their magic and it'll come out great. Yum, so warm and cozy. That's from Raquel A. Yes, Raquel, it is super, super cozy. I am definitely, even though it's, let's see, today was 85, 87 in Florida, but I'm still, oh, my alarm just started talking to me. My watch. I still am feeling fall vibes, very, very cozy vibes happening in this house tonight. So I appreciate you recognizing that. Seems like a great recipe after a work day. So relaxing. That is true. Like I said, I mean, crack open a bottle of wine, listen to music. You know, it'd be a good time to listen to a podcast. It's a fun one, and it's you know, it's good for the family. We're going to be whipping up some scallops in a little bit. Probably in a couple minutes, we'll be ready to get to the scallop portion of this evening. But if you don't like scallops, or if you want to, you know, vegetarianize this dish, there's a lot of substitutions that you can go for. You know, shrimp would be a good one because seafood and risotto goes quite well together. If you want to do like roast chicken, that would go really well with this. Some nice pieces of steak would go well. If you want to just go vegetarian, don't put any meat in there. We've got mushrooms coming to the party in a little bit. So, you know, at what time do you recommend starting the scallops? That is a good question. So we're getting to the point now. It depends how well you can multitask, because I'm going to start it soon while also keeping an eye on this. If multitasking really stresses you out and you don't think you can do that, wait until this is basically done. I'm doing it at about the halfway point. It's been about 20 minutes. So I would say the whole thing together probably takes 45. So at about the halfway point for me, I feel comfortable making my scallops here, keeping an eye on this. If that's too much for you, wait until this is done and just keep it on low so it doesn't get cold, and then cook your scallops completely separately. And then we're just going to put them on top. So it's kind of up to you and what your multitasking abilities are. So I like to call myself a good multitasker, hopefully. How many people would this recipe serve? This recipe in particular, depends how big your appetite is, but I would say 2 to 4. Let's go 2, because it's going to be an entree for us tonight. So if you want to make more, you can definitely make more. If you're serving, I don't know, let's say you have a salad as a starter and you don't need this to be your entire meal for the night, you could easily stretch it to 4. You'll see it'll be a fair amount of rice in the end, and then however many scallops you want to serve per person. So I'm going to let this continue to soak up a little bit, add in one more ladle full of broth, and then we'll get started on the scallops. So I hope you all are excited for scallop time. If there's any other questions you have about substitutions or other ideas for risottos, I'm personally love cheesy risotto. So this, you know, mushroom and onions and all that stuff goes really well with cheese. A lot of risotto variations call for squash, which, you know, that could be cheesy too. But I personally vote for any variety that like will really lend itself to cheesiness. Any tips for choosing scallops? That's a good question. Where are my scallops? I'll get there in just a second. Once we pull the scallops in there, I will talk about scallops a little bit. But generally, I like ones that are bigger. I think the ones I have are going to be 10 to 20 per pound. That's the size that they classify scallops as. You'll see in the stores, sometimes they have like really tiny ones. I tend to steer clear of those. I like a big, I'll show you what they look like in a second, but I go based on the size, and obviously you want them to smell not fishy. You want, you want good quality as best as possible to the best of your ability from your local grocery store. So we're pretty much absorbed. We're ready to hit it with another ladle of hot cooking liquid. Let that do its magic. All right, it's scallop time. I feel like I should go with a dance. All right, stop. Scallop time. Okay, so here I have my scallops on a paper towel. Can you add thyme or herbs to the risotto? If so, which do you recommend? That's another really good question. I think whatever you're feeling. I think rosemary would go really well. Thyme would go really well. I would, certain herbs you don't want to put in there too early because they'll wilt too much, like your softer herbs like basil, cilantro, parsley. Those things will probably wilt too much in this, but your heartier herbs like thyme and rosemary and a sage, bay leaf, those things that have more like oomph, get them in there by all means. I'm actually going to top this one with chives at the end. I don't know if chives are technically considered an herb. Maybe they're more of in the onion allium family, but in my mind, that's our green herb going on top. So anyway, so scallops, this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning the size of them. And that's what I was going for. And you want to make sure, you'll see on some of these, there's a little like, let me get the light right. There's a little like beep, 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 little foot on there. You want to get that off. I pulled it off of most of them, but I left one on there just to show you. Just wash my hand a bit since we touched raw fish. So we want to make sure that these are nice and dry. That's going to help us get our sear. This is not hot and safe for me to put there. And then for cooking, oil and butter combo. Both oil and butter have different smoke points. So I think they work really well for cooking scallops because you want there to be a little bit of smoke happening to get that sear on there. So we're going to heat up a cast iron skillet over here on the side. Going to do a tablespoon or two of oil. And then I'm going to go in, I think that's about 3 tablespoons of butter. Why not, How high should the heat be when cooking the scallops? That's a really good question. You want it to be just starting to smoke. So the best way that I usually can tell doing that is getting down like this, and you'll start to see little bits of smoke coming up. So that's getting hot. I'll let you know. We'll see, the butter's still there. It's not melted yet. So when it's time to start checking the heat of that, we will do so. And as I mentioned, multitasking time, we're going to stir our risotto over here as that liquid absorbs. Let it happen. And with risotto, it is definitely good to be stirring regularly. You don't want things to get stuck to the bottom and starting to, get brown down there. Right now, I've been keeping it on medium high pretty much since the beginning. I think I started at high just to get those onions going, and now I've been at medium high, and we're doing all right. We're doing okay so far just by keeping an eye on it and by stirring. So we've got butter and oil melting over here. It might be too much butter, if I'm being honest. I went a little crazy on the butter, but there are worse problems to have, right? We're getting a nice little pool of oil butter combo. And that's melting down. And we've got this happening. It's almost time to add in more liquid, but we'll wait just a second while we season our scallops with salt and pepper on both sides. I personally like seasoning pretty much all my proteins with a little bit of red pepper flakes as well. But because we're going to be kind of getting this near smoke point, we don't want all that chili flake-ish to get into the air. And we're starting to get a smoke on here. I'm just going to take out some of this butter because I might have gotten a little too excited about the butter because we are starting to smoke a bit. So just give that a sec while we pepper our scallops. And just for ease of doing this, I'm just going to salt and pepper one side, put that side down, and then we'll salt and pepper the other while it's in the pan. So I don't know if you can see here, but it is smoking. We definitely want it to sear. I'm using a cast iron because I think that'll give us a little bit of a better sear. So fingers crossed that things cooperate with me here this evening. And yeah, talking, I'm just excited to be. Okay, we've got a little bit of boil. I'm excited about everything happening in this moment. And I'm going to start by putting in some scallops. Okay, we didn't get the sizzle that I was really praying for, but it's all right. It's still going to happen for us. That was our test scallop, right? And while we are at it, let's stir our risotto. And just to recap, in case anybody has missed the steps along the way, there haven't been too many ingredients put in our risotto. We basically have onion, oil, stock, garlic, and Holland House white cooking wine. Now we're using the cooking wine here as sort of a deglazing entity, but using this cooking wine has really amped up a lot of my home recipes. I think, like I said, it's sometimes hard to know which non-cooking wine to buy at the store if you're going to use it in a recipe. It's, you know, some recipes will call for a dry white wine, and I'm like, I don't know what that means or how this recipe is going to taste or how this wine's going to taste in a recipe, not, you know, drinking it. So I think using Holland House cooking wines, there's a white version, there's a red version, really makes my at-home cooking kind of easier to manage, more exciting. It inspires me to get creative in the kitchen, and I'm just a big fan, you know. Can't say any more good things than that. And we're putting our scallops into our butter and oil, letting those have some fun. This burner over here is a little small, so that happens to me sometimes on these burners where I have to hope everybody has a good time in the pan because all right, we'll stop there so we don't overcrowd too much. And like I said, in this instance, for the ease of demonstration, I'm going to salt and pepper the other side while already in the pan. But definitely be careful if you're going to do this, because the oil and butter does have a tendency to splatter at this heat. You know, caution advised, but if I can handle it with care, I have the utmost of confidence in you at home. And let's pepper these as well. Now, if our pan was like ripped, screaming hot and cooking evenly, I would say just a couple of minutes per side. But because I sort of have a bit of an uneven cooking surface here, I think the pan is a little bigger than the cooktop. I'm going to give it a little more just so we make sure we get a sear. But we don't want to overcook our scallops. So I personally think less is more. We're going to keep an eye on those while we multitask yet again and have some fun over here with our risotto. And I hope everybody can tell how well this is coming along. Things are looking great on the risotto front. Let's flip some of these scallops. I think our middle guys might be ready to go. Oh, yeah. All right. Check that bad boy out. I hope you can see how lovely she's looking. Our middle guys are really cooperating with me. Our outer guys might be struggling, but yeah, our outer guys are unfortunately not up to snuff, but we'll shift them around a little bit. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. This is, you know, home cooking life. I'm sure you guys all know exactly where I'm coming from on this. We'll just have to do a little song and dance in there to make sure everybody gets their time on the very hot part of the pan. Ay, ay, ay. And we've got risotto cooking, coming right along. And I've got my hands full. I'm double fisting cooking utensils. We're rocking and rolling. Things smell good. The scallops and the butter in there smells like very, very buttery, delicious. I think I'm going to pull off our middle guys here in a second and plate those. So you can cook more scallops than this, obviously, if you're going to serve more people. Whoop. Get in your spot, my friend. Okay. got this guy. Okay, let's move our friends into the middle so they can have some love as well. In an ideal world, we wouldn't move them around too much, but such is life. Okay, let those friends cook a bit, get a nice sear, and I think it's time to add, we're almost at liquid time in our risotto. You'll get to this point where the rice is sort of starting to stick to the bottom, and that's when you kind of know it's time to add more liquid, because we don't want too much sticking and crusting happen. We want things to be very pale, which is what we've got right now. So double fist some cooking liquid, you go in there. Okay, what kind of spicy component could I add if I want a little kick without offering the dish's flavor too much? My favorite is red pepper flakes, genuinely. All right, start to flip these, just get the heat up a little bit so we can get more sear. Red pepper flakes is probably my favorite way, but like I said, we don't want to get all the red pepper flake into the air. So because if I had seasoned these scallops already with red chili flakes, I don't know if any of you have made this mistake where you get a little overzealous with that and then it's like literally in the air choking you. So maybe avoid that if possible at this stage, but we're going to taste our risotto for seasoning in a little bit. That would be another good point to add in something like red pepper flakes or chili powder. And that wouldn't really alter the flavor too much other than just getting a little bit of spice. Let's check on one of these. Oh, okay. She's a pretty one. Boom. Okay. Yeah, it's all about the middle of this pan. Now we know. We live and we learn. This burner over here is not friendly to bigger pans, but that's all right. And we're going to flip you. Okay. We've got a nice little grid of scallops in here. And risotto is rocking and rolling. I'm so excited. Okay, we are getting very close, my friends. And one part that I have failed to talk about yet is our mushrooms, which I'm about to throw into the risotto now that we're at the almost done with cooking phase, is our mushrooms. And I think king trumpet mushrooms would be really fun because if you cut them this way, I think I have a couple in here. They almost kind of look like scallops, which is fun, but I have a cool little variety, so why not? And you can saute your mushrooms in advance and kind of add them in at the end, but I'm going to cook them with everything. Now that our risotto is very close to the done stage, I'm going to get them in here so that they can incorporate with the flavors and everybody can be happy together, right? And we're also going to add in Parmesan cheese. So, hey-o. And there's our little mushroom medley. This was just available at the grocery store. I didn't pick out, I did not pick out these mushrooms individually. Someone asked if truffle would be too strong of a flavor for this. I actually love truffle in this Parmesan risotto. I think that was the first way I ever made it. So that was definitely very, very delicious, but we were going for a more cost-effective version here. And let's get these slippery guys off of here. Let them rest a little bit. Turn off this heat. Again, we are in peak multitasking mode. Okay, let those sit and rest. All right, let's get this hot skillet out of the way. Let's move you here. Okay. And let's tidy up a little bit. Things are hot, so it's a little scaly, but we'll be fine. Okay. Get everything out of the way. Boom. All right, we're in business. Mushroom o'clock. Heyo. And we are at the point where things look very, very close to done. I'm going to taste in just a minute, adjust my seasoning if need be. And the mushrooms are just in there cooking, adding their own flavor to everything. What other veggies would go well in this? Ooh, I think for fall, if you did kind of like a butternut squash vibe, that would go really well. Peas would go really well in there and give a nice pop of green. I think that would be very fun. You could do, what else would be good in here? Ooh, maybe something with artichoke would be really good. And then do we add more stock and seasoning when we add in the mushrooms? The answer is yes. I'm just going to taste it in a second to see what we need. And based on the doneness of the risotto, we'll determine how much more stock we need. And this is piping hot. So let's give that a little second. And I'm going to taste this. Actually, I won't do that because that's not advised. Because it's just for me, I was about to taste it off of the major mixing spoon, but we're professionals here. I'm going to taste it with a tasting spoon. But again, it's just for me and my family, so don't judge me. Whew, hot. And it's basically done. We probably just need maybe one more round of broth. Let's do one more round of broth. A little bit of salt. It doesn't need much salt. Also, definitely pay attention to the stock that you buy if it's already seasoned. See what the sodium content is of the stock that you buy, because some of them already come very, very salty, and you don't want to over salt it. That's one of the worst things you could do. So we are just about ready to wrap here, which I'm very, very excited about. If you can't tell, I'm quite hungry, and just let that absorb a bit. And now it's hard to pick a favorite. It's like choosing my favorite child. I'm going to hit it with some Parmesan cheese, which is also salty. You got to be careful not to over salt because a lot of these components already have salt in them. Okay, add in our parm. We're going to mix that in, and that's also going to help some of that liquid absorb a bit. And then we will plate up. Here we go. Mix in some of the cheese. And wow, look at her. Like I said, no cream, and there's no butter in the actual risotto part. We use butter to cook the scallops, but there's no butter, no cream, no milk. There's a little bit of cheese, but Parmesan's not even like a creamy cheese. All this creaminess that you're seeing here is from starch of the rice and just the broth and the slow cooking and coaxing out. So let's just give that a little second, and then we'll plate it up. I'm going to top it with some freshly cut chives just to give a little pop of green. And if you like other herbs, you could do kind of some fresh chiffonade basil on top would go well. I like chives though, so pick your poison on the herbs. If we were going to do again one of those like heartier, more robust herbs, we would have put them in earlier. But for now, we've got pale beige vibes that's going to be topped with a little bit of green. So let's plate this up in just a second. It's super, super creamy. It's like it shocks me every time just how creamy this gets. So I'll plate this for you this way so we can see it all. And our mushroom medley doing the Lord's work in there. Everything just working together in harmony. That goes in there. And a little bit more. Yeah, this is easily, I think I was trying to be bashful about how many servings this was earlier because I didn't want to lead you astray, but this could definitely be a solid 4 servings. Okay. Now, oh my, look at, that's just the mushrooms. Like I said, if you want to do a veg version, a vegetarian version, knock yourself out. That's just the mushrooms. Now we're going to top with some of our scallops. I like lemon on my citrus if you want. You could hit the scallops with some fresh lemon after, if that's something you're into. I'm just going to do 5. Why not? They're not too big. And then let's top with some of our scallops. Our chives. Here we go. Ooh. Here, I'll show you on this side too so you can see it. We'll do double. Okay, So someone asked, where in the grocery store do you find the Holland House Cooking Wine? That's a really good question. So it's actually not with the regular wines. It's with the condiments. So where you would find your vinegars and stuff like that. And look at that. How fancy for like an at-home Tuesday night dinner. I'm almost like, do I deserve this tonight? It's Tuesday. So let's give this a taste. Let's get some mushroom action. We got some mushroom in there. It's very hot, so I'm definitely going to burn myself, but oh, it's so hot. Hot. It's so hot, but it's very worth it. I promise. I may have just burned the upper layer of my mouth, but so worth it to taste this with you guys. Now I'm going to taste one bite of scallops and we'll hop off of here. But it's so like just creamy. Let me show you how like creamy and like, ooh. It's my favorite dish to show off that I can do. I hope this helped explain how to do it and that it was, you know, intuitive and easy to follow along. You know, I have some more cooking tips coming out on the Tastemade Maker platform with Holland House products that I'm excited to share with you all as well. So let's take our scallop bite and carry on with our evening, right? That's so good. I'm so excited. Lauren C says this was so fun to watch. Great tips. Everything looks so delicious. Yay. And Carly said, I made it all seem very easy. I'm so happy. That makes me so happy, guys. And thank you so much for watching. This was so much fun. Thanks for dealing with my organized chaos and for spending your Tuesday with me. It's been an absolute thrill. And one more shout out to our MVP, our Holland House white cooking wine. And I hope this inspired you. I just really do. It inspired me. I'm inspired to do more fun cooking at home. So thank you so much. And we will see you guys next time.